The main event of the evening. The main event of the podcast is going to be Chris and Tammy. So you watched some of it. I watched all of it this morning. Finally found a copy I could watch. Tammy and Chris, Dark Side of the Ring. It's the first episode of Series 4. And I've written a ton of notes. We'll get through as many as we can in the next, hour maybe, of whatever we've got left in the podcast time. And here's what I've written first. Chris's first territory of any note was actually first in USWA in 1991. This was not in the documentary. It sort of made it seem like it was Smoky Mountain, but that was in 92. He also was in FMW, that Japanese hardcore place, like Sabu and loads of other of the guys, of the hardcore wrestlers made their names. Including, actually, this is something else USWA based, is Chris Candido. Mostly wrestled Danny Davis and Doug Gilbert, two names we'll get to at another episode, I'm sure, before hitting SMW in 1992, and he even wrestled Taz in an early match. Do you remember Taz being in Smoky Mountain very briefly?
Yes, I do.
Why didn't you stay longer? Was it just not a good fit, or?
I don't know. I remember we ran Knoxville one day, and he was in the back. I don't even remember him at TV. So I don't know. Those things, they were out of my area of expertise, so I don't know.
Cornette has said in the past that Chris had tried some sort of high-flying, something that Gordon Soley would struggle to call, and the entire audience, the entire crowd just cuts a great big wet fart on it because they didn't even know what they were seeing. And then someone pulls, I can't remember the full stories off the top of my head, someone pulls Chris aside and said, listen, instead of doing this like double flying watch-a-moojar, why don't you get annoyed? Right?
What was that word?
And why don't you get all wound up and frustrated and then kick the stairs on the ringside and then sell your foot? And then he did that, and then the crowd went, whoa, and got a huge reaction. I think that's a great lesson for people to learn, aspiring wrestlers or wrestlers out there to learn, is that every crowd is different, every territory is different, and what works one place may not work in the other place.
Well, every wrestler that goes out there, he has to feel the temperature of the room. It's like a comic. You got to feel the temperature, and you got to, if they're buying this, give them that. If they're buying something else, give them that. MVP, you know who I'm talking about. Yeah. I brought him to Puerto Rico. Well, I didn't bring him. Luke brought him. He went out one night and he had this wrestling match. It's like crickets. Nothing. So he come back. I said, brother, you got to stop that wrestling. He said, yeah, but that's what we're supposed to do. I said, no, not in Puerto Rico. If you don't give them something that they can dislike right off the bat, this wrestling is not going to do it. They're not big perceivers of technical wrestling. So stop it. So he stopped it. He got better, but it was painful to watch. So I told him to stop it.
What did you tell him specifically to do? Just punch kick?
Yeah, I said that. Show some personality. Show me that. I don't care. There's different ways to do it. You show me your way. And I'm watching it. So if you do something that I like and the fans like, it may benefit you in the long run, to do that kind of stuff. I want you to get a rise out of those people out there, because people just don't get up or yell for no reason. You got to give them an incentive to do that. And that's what I think a lot of bookers don't do. I mean, somebody asked me one day, they said, what's it take to be a booker? And I said, well, anybody can be a booker. I said, you could be a booker. Just go and say, here's the card. Come up with what you want to do. So therefore, that means you're the booker. So tell me what you want to do, and we'll do it. And you can, but the secret is to be a successful booker, which is a little bit harder. But see, most of the guys who drew a lot of money, all these bookers that drew all this money, they had the idea, but they didn't have the format of the match these guys were going to have. And they would get them in the back and said, this is what I want to do, blah, blah, blah. We want to end up here. So you guys take this, put it together, and then the match starts here, and the match flows down through here. Till you get over here, and then we're going to piece it all together. I mean, it sounds a little more difficult than what it is. But once you tell guys where you want to go, if you kind of involve them in the process, they'll get you there. I mean, most experienced guys will anyway.
Did you ever work with MVP anywhere else? Or was it just Puerto Rico? Because he went to WWE, he had tons of personality, so he obviously learned something from you.
They told him the same thing, probably. Because he was just starting when I booked him. And I don't know where Luke found him. I really don't. I guess he called Luke, and he got booked down there. I didn't know the guy. And when I came in, he said, oh yeah, mate, matey, I booked this guy. I forgot his name. His name wasn't there. I forgot even what his name was then. And I met him the night of the show. We went somewhere, and he went out there, and I watched him. I wanted to see. He didn't stay long. He stayed like a month.
Gonna bug me now. I've got to find out. Antonio Banks?
Maybe.
Could have been that. Anyway.
I think it was that.
We'll leave him there. I've just got to ask you this as well, just before we get into the meat of the documentary. Memories of Boo Bradley, a.k.a. Balls Mahoney, a.k.a. for a very brief period, Santa Claus, the evil Father Christmas, Santa Claus that lasted, unsurprisingly, the month of December. And then the characters sort of lost interest in January.
Mm-hmm. I had him in Puerto Rico, too.
Oh, did you really?
He was, and read those names, I think he wasn't Boo Bradley. He would have
been Balls later on.
Balls Mahoney. So I remember talking to him one night. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. We were sitting outside drinking, and I was talking to him. He was talking back and forth. And I mentioned to him that who were the two guys in ECW? They were a tag team, and one of them died. I don't know.
When? What? During ECW? Public Enemy?
During Public Enemy.
Definitely Public Enemy, because I was going to say the Eliminator, not the Eliminators, although one of those did die.
It was
the Pitbulls.
Public Enemy.
It was Public Enemy.
The Pitbulls.
Yeah, they wore the leather one piece.
Well, I may have this wrong, okay. But it doesn't really matter about the story. But we were talking, and he said one of the I think he mentioned the Public Enemy guys, and I went, the one that died? And he went, what?
Oh, no.
And I went, I didn't know what to say, because they were all from the Northeast up there. I thought they were all friends. And if one of them had died, surely Balls would have known. And he says, you're kidding me, right? I went, no. And he got up, and this really bothered me. He started crying. And he got up and he said, I got to go. And he left. And I think he went home early the next morning. So, it's hard to break news to somebody that you think they already know, but he didn't. But Balls, he was good, and he was different. And he got over in Puerto Rico. It was his style. People liked him. And I think he'd have done well there had he stayed. So, but I never will forget that, how it shocked him. He started crying. Hell, I almost started crying because I didn't know what I thought he knew, but he didn't. So that's like one of those things that. Hang on a minute.
Mm. What's that? The dog was barking there, but we pretty much ended. I was going to say, because you had the pit bulls in IWA in 2002, Gary Wolf and Anthony Duranti, and I think Anthony died the year after. But you did have the pit bulls in 2002.
In Puerto Rico?
Yep, IWA.
I didn't book them either.
Oh, okay then.